Welcome to another Boxing History Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Mike Goodpaster. Make sure you check out BetMGM for your best bets to bet on boxing. Check that link out in the description below. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification button to get all of our shows. Today, the question is Mike Tyson or Michael Spinks? Who was the greater fighter? Now, I know a lot of people at first glance would automatically think this is a no brainer. Spinks was destroyed in 91 seconds by Mike Tyson. So he has been the greater fighter, right? Now, I would say to those people, not so fast. Michael Spinks was an all-time great light heavyweight champion, and a case can be made that he is the greatest of all time, at worst, top 5 light heavyweights. Tyson had a short, brilliant prime that flamed out because of his own stupidity, i.e., letting Don King promote his fights, firing any good trainer he had, and anybody that cared about him. Let's look at these two legends a little bit more closely so we could get an answer on the greatness. Who was greater, Mike Tyson or Michael Spinks? Now, we're going to start off looking at their amateur careers. And as an amateur, Tyson won gold medals at the 81 and 82 Junior Olympic Games. He defeated Joe Cortez, not that Joe Cortez, in 1981, and beat Kelton Brown in 1982. Brown's corner threw in the towel in the first round to win that title. Now, in 1984, Tyson won the gold medal at the National Golden Gloves held in New York, defeating Jonathan Littles. He fought Henry Tillman twice as an amateur, losing both bouts by decision. The defeats against Tillman cost Tyson a spot on the legendary 1984 U.S. Olympic boxing team. And make no mistake about it, Tyson lost those two fights, especially the first one. Many people tried to make a little bit of a revisionist history, but Tyson lost 2 of the 3 rounds in each fight against Tillman. And there was no shame in that, as Tillman had the perfect style to be an outstanding amateur boxer, and he proved that by medaling at the Olympics. Michael Spinks' amateur career, a little bit different. Spinks defeated Wilbur Cameron to win the 1974 156-pound Golden Gloves light and middleweight championship. He then won the silver medal in 1976 AAU at 166 pounds or 165 pounds, defeating Tom Sullivan in Shreveport in 1976. He took the National Golden Gloves middleweight championship with a 3-round win over Lamont Kirkland in Miami. The same year, he also captured the U.S. Olympic Trials middleweight championship, defeating Keith Broom in Cincinnati. Now, Spinks benefited from a favorable draw at the 1976 Montreal Olympics. He was only required to fight 2 opponents to win the gold medal for the middleweight division, thanks to a bye and 2 wins by walkover. In the final, he defeated the Soviet's Rufev Riskayev. So when you look at the amateur careers, there's no doubt here that this quickly goes to Mike Spinks. He won the title, won gold in 1976, one of the all-time great amateur boxers at that weight class. Michael Spinks had the better amateur career. Now we're going to look at their professional careers. And this is really interesting when you look at both of them. There's a lot of nuances here that you really have to pay attention to. Because Michael Spinks only fought 31, 32 fights in his entire career. And you could ask, why did he only fight that many times in a decade? Well, Spinks turned professional with a win over Eddie Benson, knocking him out in Las Vegas in 1 round in 1977. Unfortunately, Spinks' career took a backseat to his brother Leon, who upset Muhammad Ali to become the world's heavyweight champion. Spinks fought sparingly in 1977, 78, and 79 as he put his own career aside to help his brother Leon. In 1979, Spinks, who fought 1 round during that entire year, only won in 1979. Now, 1980 saw a meteoric rise for Michael Spinks. And Spinks beat future IBF super middleweight champion Murray Sutherland, David Conte, and French contenders Ramon Ronquail and the tough Yaki Lopez, who challenged for a world title 4 times. The Lopez win got people's attention as Lopez was an excellent fighter with a great chin, and Spinks destroyed Lopez after struggling for the first few rounds. Now, Spinks became the #1 challenger after knocking out another great fighter, Marvin Johnson, in the 4th round. And much like the Lopez fight, the win over Johnson got people's attention, not because he won, but because he knocked out the durable Marvin Johnson. That led to his title clash with champion Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. Spinks showed his power by dropping Muhammad in the 12th round and dominating the fight, winning an easy decision. Now, tragedy struck Spinks right before his biggest fight. In January 1983, His 24-year-old wife, Sandy Massey, died in a car crash, leaving Spinks the single parent of his 2-year-old daughter, Michelle. He's a single father now. And that unification fight with Dwight Muhammad Qawi was just 2 months away. On March 18th, 2 months after his wife's death, Spinks and Qawi met in a boxing ring for the undisputed light heavyweight championship. This fight was one of the biggest in the storied history of the light heavyweight championship. Spinks controlled the action and beat Qawi behind a stiff jab and by great ring generalship. In 1984, Spinks defended his title just once against Eddie Davis. Spinks made the decision, but the fight could have, Spinks won the decision, but the fight could have gone either way. And many ringside observers thought Davis deserved the decision. A rematch with Qawi was scheduled, but an injury to Qawi delayed the rematch. Was Spinks starting to slip was the big question then. In 1985, Spinks quickly handled David Sears and Diamond Jim McDonald. Now, the McDonald fight was on June 6th. Just 3 months later, Spinks would challenge the undefeated heavyweight champion Larry Holmes in a contest that few gave him any shot at winning. Spinks put on over 20 pounds in just 3 months to fight Holmes. Of course, he used Mackie Shillstone, and I remember watching the HBO broadcast where they show Shillstone training him. He put on 20 pounds, most of it muscle, in 3 months. And the Holmes fight, to me, was Spinks' shining moment. Spinks outworked and outboxed the champion to win a close but just decision. And he became the first, Spinks did, to win the light heavyweight championship and the heavyweight championship. He defended the title against a nondescript Stefan Tankstad and then beat the much bigger Jerry Cooney, stopping Cooney in 5 rounds. Then you had the unfortunate fight with Mike Tyson. It's unfortunate because when you look at this, he was a light heavyweight 3 months before dethroning Holmes. His career lasted 10 years. He'd fought great fighters that, Marvin Johnson can hit. Yaki Lopez can punch. He was on the downside of his career. You could really see it with the knees because you could see, he started to wear the knee braces on his knees during the fights, and it really hurt his mobility. Now, when we look at Mike Tyson, meteoric rise is the best, easiest way to put this. Tyson turned pro in 1985 and won his first 15 fights against journeymen until he increased the competition. The increase in competition saw devastating knockouts of Marvis Frazier and Jesse Ferguson. Tyson was nationally known early in his career because of the work of Jimmy Jacobs and Bill Caton, who masterfully guided the young phenom's career. Cus D'Amato died early in Tyson's pro career, and Tyson struggled with the cagey former title contender James Quick-Tillis, and he also struggled with Mitch Green, who both took Tyson the distance. Tillis actually won 3 or 4 rounds. Now, Tyson got a shot at an alphabet champion, Trevor Berbick, in late 1986. Tyson easily defeated Berbick, and from there, the entire world knew who this ferocious young fighter was. Tyson unified the titles by beating Bone Crusher Smith and finally a very talented younger Tony Tucker. Both men took Tyson the distance. Still, Michael Spinks loomed as a lineal heavyweight champion, and in 1988, Tyson would fight Spinks once and for all to settle who the real champion was. Tyson was trained at the time by Kevin Rooney, and his title defenses over Tyrell Biggs, Larry Holmes, and Tony Tubbs were all quick and destructive knockouts. Tyson became the man after knocking out Spinks in the first round and seemed destined for greatness. But in 1990, Rooney was gone as Tyson's trainer, and his promoter was now Don King. You had the Robin Givens mess, and things outside of the ring seemed to be falling apart for Tyson. Then early in 1990, it fell apart inside the ring as the unknown James Buster Douglas soundly defeated Tyson and knocked him out in the 9th round or 10th round. It was the 10th round. Now, Tyson would win 2 tough fights after against the rugged Razor Ruddock before finding himself in legal trouble again. Tyson was accused of rape by Desiree Washington and would end up spending 3 years in jail. Upon his return, he was matched with Peter McNeely, who would be dispatched in less than 2 minutes. Tyson would reclaim a portion of his title with a win over the petrified Frank Bruno, and then grabbed another piece of the belt when he would stop Bruce Seldon in the first round. And it was questionable even if Seldon had never been hit. Now, Evander Holyfield was considered old and washed up by then, and he was a considerable underdog against Tyson. Sadly for Tyson, Holyfield was not washed up, and Tyson took a massive beating from the underdog Holyfield. Tyson decided to take the easy way out in a rematch by being disqualified for biting Holyfield. I guess Tyson figured it was better to be disqualified than to be knocked out again. The rest of Tyson's career was a mess, and for the most part, it was nobody but Tyson's fault. The advantage when you look at the pro careers, to me, I think is an easy one, and it goes to Spinks. Spinks dominated a light heavyweight division for almost a decade and pulled one of the biggest upsets in heavyweight boxing history by beating Larry Holmes. Spinks fought and defeated the more challenging competition. The light heavyweight division in the late 70s, early 80s was stacked as big as it had been since probably before 1940. Now, when you look at the intangibles of these guys, Tyson fans will repeat the mantra that if Cuss had lived, Tyson would have been unbeatable. Those people are clowns, need to open their eyes. Tyson was mentally weak, and Spinks wasn't. Just 2 months after his wife had passed, remember, Spinks fought and won one of the biggest light heavyweight title fights of all time. Spinks was tougher than Tyson mentally. Spinks was the end of the road when they fought, and by then the size difference was too much to overcome. While I think at any point in their careers that Tyson would win at heavyweight, I also know that Spinks, as a light heavyweight, was undoubtedly one of the greatest of all time. I don't think there's anybody out there except the biggest Mike Tyson nut huggers, the biggest Mike Tyson fanboy that thinks Tyson was an all-time top 5 fighter. He doesn't have the resume. So when you look at intangibles, this has to go to Spinks. I mean, hell, most guys will cancel a fight if they have a hangnail nowadays. Spinks fought 2 months after his wife had died and won the contest. Tyson never came off the canvas to win. It was not good at overcoming obstacles. His fans consider his prime from 1986 to 1989. In 1990, he was 24 years old, and he lost to Buster Douglas at the age of 24. To me, the fact that losing Cuss, Rooney, Caton, and Jacobs was a perfect time to show that he was an all-time great. He came up far short. All those men warned him about Don King, but he still went with King. That shows a character flaw in and of itself. In all actuality, Cuss may have hurt Tyson long-term by letting him do as he pleased when he first started training the young Tyson. He never learned about consequences or to take responsibility for himself. Michael Spinks was a man that always took responsibility for everything he did. Who was greater? You know where I'm going with this. To me, this can't be questioned. Spinks is an all-time great, and Tyson was a wasted all-time non-ton of talent guy. I mean, Spinks dominated a loaded light heavyweight division for over a half a decade and never ducked anybody while doing it. Spinks moved up and did something nobody else had ever done. And while it is true that a prime Tyson easily defeated Spinks, it is also true that a prime Spinks was at light heavyweight in 1982, weighing 173 pounds, not as a heavyweight 6 years later. It's very sad that most people, when they think of Spinks' career, they think of his unfortunate loss to Tyson. Outside of the ring, Spinks carried himself with class. He does to this day. And he got less recognition than many fighters because he didn't run his mouth. He didn't showboat. In short, Michael Spinks was everything a champion was supposed to be. And we have very few of those nowadays. All right, guys, that's it for the show. Make sure you follow me at Grueling Truth. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification on YouTube. But for now, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legend